Hey everyone, so I'm just bagging up some dry muña. Muña is a wild herb that grows around here in Peru. They say it's very good for altitude sickness. I think hydrating yourself is very good for altitude sickness in general. And so this muña, it's on a stem when it dries. And then I take it off the stem and put it in a little bowl. And now I'm going to bag it so I can take it with me when I decide to trip out from here. And so while we're bagging the muña, just wanted to talk about trauma. Trauma is something we deal with a lot in this society. I can remember one of my I think birth is a trauma. You're birthed into a hospital with all these doctors around, so that's like everyone's first trauma. For the lucky people who are not birthed inside of a hospital, who have home birth, who are birthed in a forest, wow, amazing. And when you're birthed into a hospital, this is another thing. It makes you want to go back to the hospital your whole life. Since you came from there, you feel like people tell you this is where you go when you get sick, this is where you go when you feel like you're gonna die. And so everyone is always going back to the hospital. And what do they do in the hospital? They give you pharmaceutical drugs. They try and take responsibility for your health, which is your responsibility. We are all responsible for our health. And so they make you believe through being birthed into a hospital that you always need to go back here and that these doctors are actually responsible for your health, that you're not responsible for your health. It's crazy Inception. And so another trauma that happens within the medical system, within doctors' offices and hospitals, is vaccination. As children, I don't think there is one single child who wants to be vaccinated. I am sure that I did not want to be vaccinated. And the first time I can recall, around 4 years old, my mom took me to the doctor's office to get vaccinated. I begged, I cried, I said, please do not vaccinate me. And of course, my mom's like, just hug me, and they put the vaccine in my butt. And that's how it goes. And so people who we were then told that this trauma, this vaccine, which we feel very deeply is not good for us, that it's actually good. And through this entire traumatic process of them force vaccinating you, they put another idea in your mind that this is good for you, accept it. This is going to come again in the future, and it's actually for your immune system. It's to protect your health. And so keep taking them, keep taking them. And as children, we're not able to ask what's in the vaccine. We're not able to ask how it works. And then as adults, I came back at around 28 years old. Even before that, I'd say around 26 years old, I started thoroughly investigating how a vaccine works and what is in a vaccine. And at 28 years old, I became very interested. Right now I'm 33 years old, so this was about 5 years ago. And through this process of asking what is in a vaccine, how does it work, looking into these things, what I found out is that in the vaccine you have an adjuvant. So this is something like aluminum or polysorbate 80 or formaldehyde, which is used actually to attenuate the virus in some cases, like mercury, and it's also used as an adjuvant to aggravate the nervous system, to make to create or I should say the immune system, but it aggravates the nervous system as well. And so the idea is that they want to make an immune response. And so aluminum or polysorbate 80, right, a toxic plastic, these things are going to attack your body in the presence of the cut up virus in the vaccine, so that your body feels like the virus is attacking it. And so it will create antibodies for the antigens of the dead, chopped up virus that's present. And so there's a few problems with all of this. And they really like to use aluminum because they say aluminum has like a barbed wire structure where it grabs onto the pieces of the dead virus or the chopped up virus inside of the vaccine, and then it attacks it like with a direct correlation. So the body is more likely to make antibodies for the antigens of the virus when you have something like aluminum in the vaccine. And so there are a few problems with this. The way that they First of all, a virus is not dead or alive. We learned this in school, that a virus is like a protein capsule with RNA or DNA inside of it, and it is actually basically dead until it comes in contact with a live cell, and then its program starts running. It starts injecting its RNA or DNA into the cell, and then starts reproducing itself with the cell's technology, with the cell's reproductive mechanisms, because the virus doesn't have them on its own. And so the virus is never really dead or alive. And so how do you kill something that isn't dead or alive? And it's so small that when they put it through this process of trying to chop it up and put it into the vaccine, are we certain that whole viruses don't remain intact? So this is something that they try and fix through an attenuator. They put mercury in the vaccine, and as far as I'm aware, formaldehyde is another one. They put this in the vaccine so that if there are still viruses that weren't cut up, that these viruses won't come back to life. But when you inject this into someone's body, is the formaldehyde going to stay with the virus? Not necessarily. And so the virus is injected into your body, it separates from the formaldehyde, it separates from the mercury, and then potentially they're giving you a live virus. So you can listen to a talk from Nkuba Kihura, a man from Africa who had a radio talk show in Africa while they were coming out with the oral polio vaccine, where he talked about how they were giving people a live virus. They were giving people, before the oral polio vaccine came, they came and gave people the HIV virus through the vaccine, that there was no HIV epidemic or pandemic in Africa. It was all propaganda in the first world. We paid the World Health Organization and UNICEF to go give these poor Native Africans an HIV vaccine. That caused genocide, essentially, that 3/4 of the Africans who received the HIV vaccine received HIV. There was HIV in the vaccine, live. And a lot of them died, a lot of them got sick. And then a few years later, in the 80s, they came back with the oral polio vaccine to kill off the rest that they didn't kill off. And this man, Nkuba Kihura, I can't remember if I'm pronouncing his name right. You can look this up on YouTube. Maybe the video is still there, on Dr. Russell Blaylock's channel, who's like a natural health doctor, a neurosurgeon as well. And this man from Africa talks about how he received the pamphlet from the oral polio vaccine. And within the pamphlet itself, there were contraindications to give it to people who had a history of HIV. And everyone in Africa had a history of HIV because the UN and the World Health Organization came around a few years earlier with the HIV vaccine and gave people HIV. And so it's genocide. There's a lot of gold. There's a lot of diamonds in Africa. People want to take these resources away from the native people. They want to get them for free. They want to get them for cheap. They want to enslave people. So what are we doing in this world? What are we doing with the medical system, with vaccines, with manipulating people through trauma? I can go into a lot more detail, and I will. There will be more videos about all these topics and how it all connects. We need to become more conscious of what's happening in this world, my friends.